Is limited edition a lie? When we think about something as being limited edition, we think of items made in small limited runs or batches, though what we may classify as a small limited run can vary subject to the producer's standard production numbers. However, there doesn't always need to be a previous production run to quantify a limited number. Artists, for example, since at least the 1700s, have used the means when making limited edition prints, usually churning out anywhere between 25 to 100 pieces of their works. Limited edition is, of course, an excellent sales tactic that seems to have, in recent years, been overused, misused, and completely abused within the watch industry. Obviously, not all watchmakers are up to no good, but either way, here are just a handful of the types of false limited edition offerings to look out for. At number 1, we have one of my favourite brands, G-Shock. Casio's G-Shock is quite possibly the worst offender. They've released a plethora of new limited edition watches almost as frequently as a chicken lays her eggs. So much so that they have dedicated an entire section of their website to these limited edition pieces, which make up almost half of their entire collection. However, can any of you tell me what these limited edition watches are limited to? Because there is certainly no mention of it on their website, product pages on other websites, advertising materials, or anywhere else for that matter. And when you think people are willing to part with up to thousands in some instances to own one, then you would have at least thought you might know what you're actually buying. Because in reality, it's quite possible that Casio sold far more of their limited edition versions. And that is why you do see many limited edition G-Shocks being sold for less than you would expect on the likes of eBay. I know some of you may be saying, well, it's limited by time. Well, then Casio should be making that abundantly clear. And that being the case, it wouldn't necessarily fit in with the ideology of limited edition. Both are very different things. At number 2, we have another Japanese brand, Grand Seiko, though it's certainly not just the Japanese watchmakers who are up to these same dirty tricks. Now, I personally adore many of the Grand Seiko watches and designs. There's no two ways about it. They're just magnificent. If you are looking for a low-run limited edition Grand Seiko, then they are there to be had. Like this beauty. I inevitably don't have any issue with this limited edition watch whatsoever. But I do have an issue with this one, this one, this one, this one. At the time of filming this, Grand Seiko have 122 watches in their collection. 27, so almost a quarter, are limited editions, many limited to under 100 pieces and others under a few hundred. However, they do have a number of repeat offenders like these four, all limited to 2,000, 2,500 a piece. What's wrong with this, you may ask? Well, Grand Seiko produce, but do not necessarily sell, approximately 35,000 watches per year. So let's say Grand Seiko sell an equal number of the 122 watches in their collection. That equates to roughly 287 of each watch produced each year. Obviously, subject to when Grand Seiko chooses to discontinue a design or replace it, it would take almost 9 years to sell 2,500 of one of these non-limited edition watches. Putting that in a different way, Grand Seiko only needs to produce 14 different watches or make 11% of their current stock limited to 2,500 each in order to hit their production target of 35,000 per year. So you can see why they do it, because they can charge more and sell more. But as things currently stand, it is a bit of a big fat lie. And finally, at number 3, the micro brand. Here we have Liv watches. I did feature Liv in one of my previous videos, and though I quite like one or two of their designs, they too exploit the limited edition model. Here on Kickstarter, back in 2017, you were able to buy any of these watches which were limited to 500, not so bad, or 1,500 pieces each for a reduced price. Sound familiar? Like many other micro watch brands possibly? Well, what exactly are they comparing these limited edition numbers to? I may agree if they were making a limited run of just 100 pieces, 300 pieces, or the 500 pieces as they have done, but 1,500. There are watch brands that don't even produce or sell more than 1,000 watches a year, which they don't call limited edition. So a new brand comes along and offers several watch designs in many different colour variations, all limited to 1,500 apiece. Is, as quoted by David Mitchell, like taking an extremely tired mason and showing him an entire cathedral. The reason why they do this is, of course, because if they didn't, it likely wouldn't trigger that psychological need of urgency and fear of losing out by making something limited edition when it's clearly not. Offering a low, in inverted commas, buy it now price, though in many cases it was never intended to achieve or going to necessarily be sold for more than that lower price in the first place, because all the popular Kickstarter watches usually sell through the Kickstarter page at the lesser price before it gets to the main website. It's like walking into a furniture store that has year-round 50% off sales where none of the items for sale have ever been sold at the recommended retail price. So of course, limited edition micro brands offerings in the main are a load of baloney. It's a huge money spinner for them. So the moral of this story is, don't be fooled and drawn into the lie that is limited edition. Only buy a limited edition watch if you really like it and just have to have it. It doesn't necessarily mean that in decades to come, if the popularity for wristwatches still exists in the way that it does today, that it will be worth more than the non-limited edition versions. It's all down to rarity, scarcity, condition and demand. Thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed this video and would like to see more boring content like this, then hit those buttons below. Until the next time.